So that brings us to that third point. And what picture most people paint is perfection, right? And so the third kind of mistake that firm owners could make is constantly chasing perfection. And I've been guilty of that myself. The hard truth behind all of that is perfection isn't attainable. You get to whatever that perfect size is, that perfect client, that perfect revenue mark profitability, and what's next? I think we're just driven in ways that perfection isn't there. It's kind of fleeting. And so I don't know if it's a mirage or whatever visual you want, but for me, it's something that can never be attained. It's something that you kind of have to constantly be okay with, that you're going to make mistakes as you go. And like you said, in the comparison mistake point, there's just, you need people around you that can kind of help keep you accountable, and also understand that perfection isn't a real thing.
Yeah, consistency is always going to yield better results than perfection. So there might be the best way to do something or the optimal way to do something, but if it's not practical, if you can't apply it on a consistent basis, then it's not the perfect way for you or for me. So I can go all in and say, I'm going to work out twice a day, every day. I think 75 hard challenge. So it's for 75 days. And maybe you can make it for 75. But what happens on 76? Like, what happens on 300 after that 75 days? What do those days look like? So, or can we do like something maybe a little less extreme, but can do it? I can take a walk every day, whether that's inside or outside, whether that's 5 minutes or 55 minutes. And so, really, just looking at things like that. Another one might be for us, like posting on LinkedIn every single day. So, somewhere that was set up as a goal that we wanted to do and just see. And so then it's like, oh my gosh, we're just trying to put anything out there. And it's like, okay, if we're consistent, if we can do 4 days a week and put out good content versus I have to do 5 days a week, so I'll just put out anything. It just has to be a balance. And so being consistent, because what happens at the end of the day, sometimes minds are crazy places to go. And if you can't be perfect, then you're like, well, then it's just not worth doing at all. And so that's why consistency often beats out perfection, because a lot of time perfection is not sustainable. So even if you can achieve it at a point, then it's not sustainable. So then you end up not doing it anything and doing something, then in that case would be better than doing nothing.
Hey, but those 75 hard challenges, that's what people talk about. Like, that's what gets the views and the clicks and, the discussion, right? Is something like
I feel
that
like it's
versus,
died down.
well, it's past the 75th day of the new year, right? So no one's talking about it anymore. So I don't know what percentage of people like quit around what, day 12. Isn't there some magic number after so many times of doing something, it becomes a habit? I'm sure you know that off the top of your head.
I think that it's different for every person. There are maybe some averages or something that helps, but really that is different for every person. With 75 hard, which was something that's very interesting, is that if you miss any part of it on one day, you have to start over at day one. And so there's probably not a whole lot of people that talk about if they didn't quite make it, or if they had to restart multiple times and then still didn't make it. Yeah, they're probably not. They're probably not sharing
Yeah.
that on social media. It's only the people who actually made it. So,
Yeah, the only thing in my life, I try to avoid stuff like that because I know I'm going to fail, and you want to just build in acceptance once that day comes, or once whatever that non-consistency is. And I think there's great books about that. Craig Rochelle just wrote a recent book about that exact topic. So even, for example, my Bible app, right? You can have a streak if you do the daily kind of reading and all that fun stuff. And if you miss a day, you have to start over. Kind of that same 75 hard concept. So from a chasing perfection, I would just make sure that all firm leaders, CPA, or business owners in general know that perfection can't be caught. You're just chasing after the win, right? Is kind of how the old saying goes.
I think the recovery strategy for perfectionism is that you have to intentionally fail at something and then start again and see that it's okay. That it's okay that you could pick back up and keep going and the world doesn't shut down, the world doesn't end. So that if you're not doing something the very best, but you're just doing something, you're still making progress forward. So even if you don't have it all figured out, but you're still trying, you're still doing things and headed in the right direction, you're better off than if did it one time perfectly for such a short amount of time and then gave up after that because it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to firm ownership or types of firms, you've got tax practices, you've got the full larger firm options where you may have a variety of different practices or service lines with audit and consulting and all that fun stuff, or you may have a CAS practice. And so when I think about just firms in general and the word perfect, it's real easy to see like there is no perfect firm because within a firm, you have people and people aren't perfect, right? And so I think once you start realizing that this isn't a textbook scenario, as much as we all kind of think back to our education and how easy it seemed, right? Whether it's a CPA exam or a classroom type setting, those textbook scenarios made it real easy, right? We knew the answer, but we didn't have to have the conversation with the team member about what they were working through or how they needed to step it up in one area or another or deliver the hard news to a client. Like you can't do that in those settings. You kind of have to learn on the fly. And so whenever you look at perfection, especially when it comes to a CPA firm, you have to give yourself a lot of grace because of who's in that firm. Maybe if it's even only yourself, no one person is perfect.